The barren moon stretched far in every direction, a sea of gray dust and silent craters. No wind moved. No sound carried. The only motion came from the human explorer named Ryan, his boots pressing faint marks into the lifeless ground as he searched for signs of wreckage. His small craft had picked up a faint distress signal earlier, and though he could have ignored it, curiosity and duty pulled him forward. The signal had led him across ridges and valleys until finally, he found it. At the base of a shallow crater lay the broken remains of a ship that clearly did not belong to humans. The hull was torn open, dark smoke curling upward before fading into the thin sky. Strange markings carved across its surface glowed faintly, symbols that pulsed with dying energy. Ryan felt his chest tighten with both fear and excitement. He approached carefully, hand near the holster at his belt. He had heard rumors of alien vessels spotted on the edges of explored space, but to stand in front of one was different. The wreck was larger than his own ship, shaped like a blade driven into the ground. Sparks flickered from cracked panels, and strange fluids dripped from pipes like blood from a wound. Inside the gash of twisted metal, movement caught his eye. Ryan froze. For a moment he thought it might be a trick of smoke and light, but then he saw her. An alien figure lay against the wreckage, armor glinting even in the faint light. She was tall, taller than him, her body encased in heavy plates marked with scratches and burns. The armor looked like it had been built for war, thick and unyielding, yet now it was cracked in many places. Her breathing was shallow, each rise of her chest slow and strained. Ryan's instinct told him to step back. She was clearly a soldier from a people he did not know. If she woke and saw him, would she see him as friend or enemy? But the sight of her struggling pulled him forward. He moved closer, lowering his guard though his heart pounded. Her eyes opened suddenly, sharp and glowing with a faint light. They locked on him with a force that made him stop in his tracks. She tried to rise, but the damaged armor weighed her down. A low sound came from her throat, half warning, half pain. Ryan raised both hands to show he carried no weapon in them. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said calmly. His voice sounded small against the emptiness of the crater. She did not answer, only watching him with narrowed eyes. Her breathing grew heavier. Ryan noticed how she pressed one hand against her side, where a fracture in the armor revealed scorched skin beneath. Without help, she might not last long. Slowly, carefully, Ryan knelt beside her. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small water tube. He placed it on the ground between them, not daring to force it into her hands. "Take it," he said gently. For a long moment she did nothing. Then, with effort, she lifted her hand and dragged the tube closer. She drank a little, her gaze never leaving him. When she finished, her voice finally came, deep and rough but clear. "Why help me?" she asked. Ryan thought for a moment before answering. "Because you need it. That's reason enough." Her eyes softened for only a heartbeat, then hardened again as if she remembered who she was. She tried once more to rise, but the armor bound her. Frustration showed on her face as she sank back. She whispered something under her breath, words Ryan could not understand, then looked back at him. "Armor," she said, tapping weakly at the chest plate. "It does not open." Ryan leaned closer, studying the strange locks and seals across her body. The armor seemed more alive than mechanical, almost like a second skin. It had fused in places, melted from the crash. Removing it would be difficult, maybe impossible without tools. Still, he knew he had to try. "I can help," Ryan said. He pulled out a small cutting device from his pack, showing it so she could see. "But you must trust me." Her silence stretched long, as if the decision cost her more than strength. Finally, she gave a short nod. Ryan set to work. He pressed the tool against the side of the armor where it was most damaged. The metal hissed as sparks flew, the edges peeling back. The sound made her tense, but she did not push him away. Bit by bit, he carved through the fused layers, careful not to touch her skin beneath. As he worked, he spoke softly, hoping to ease her fear. "My name is Ryan. I came here because of your signal. What is your name?" She did not answer right away. Her eyes closed briefly, then opened again with a trace of exhaustion. "Arya," she said at last. The name carried weight, as if spoken with pride, yet there was also pain in it. Ryan repeated it softly, almost to himself, then continued his careful work. Hours seemed to pass as he freed sections of the armor. Sweat gathered on his forehead, but he did not stop. Every piece he removed showed more of her wounds. Beneath the armor, Arya's skin bore old scars and fresh burns. Ryan realized she had survived battles long before this crash. Finally, he pulled back from his work. "That is all I can do for now," he said. Arya leaned back, her chest rising more easily than before. She studied him, her glowing eyes softer than when they first met. "Nobody made me take it off gently," she said in a quiet voice. The words struck Ryan. He understood then that her life had been shaped by violence, by force, by commands shouted over battlefields. To have someone treat her wounds with patience was something rare, perhaps new to her. Ryan sat beside her, silent for a moment, letting the meaning of her words rest between them. The silence of the moon surrounded them, but for the first time since landing, Ryan did not feel alone. He knew this was only the beginning. The silence of the moon stretched around them, broken only by the faint hum of damaged systems inside the wreck. Ryan sat close to Arya, his hands resting on the ground as he studied her with quiet concern. She leaned against the wall of the broken ship, her armor still clinging to her body in heavy sections, though some had been removed. Her breathing was steadier now, yet her face showed pain she would not admit. Ryan knew she needed more help than he could give in the open crater. He looked around the twisted wreckage, searching for a safer spot. Small sparks popped from broken wires above, and strange liquid dripped down in glowing drops that hissed when they touched the ground. The ship was no shelter for long. "You should not stay here," Ryan said gently. "The wreck is not safe. If the systems burn, it could explode." Arya's eyes narrowed. Her pride was clear even in her weakened state. She tried to shift her body, pressing her palms against the ground as if to stand, but the armor made her effort heavy and slow. With a frustrated sound, she sank back. "I can carry you," Ryan offered. He knew the words might offend her, but leaving her in the wreck was not an option. Her glowing eyes fixed on him, sharp and untrusting. She was a warrior, and warriors did not ask for help. He could see the fight in her expression, the struggle between refusing aid and knowing she could not survive without it. Finally, after a long pause, she gave a small nod. Ryan stepped closer, sliding his arms under her. He was surprised by the weight. The armor made her feel like stone, and though he was strong, carrying her tested every muscle. She stayed stiff in his arms, her face turned away, as if the act of being lifted wounded her more than the crash itself. He carried her out of the wreck and climbed the side of the crater. Each step was slow, his boots digging into the dust, but determination drove him. When they reached the ridge, he set her down gently on a flat piece of ground. Above them, the stars spread wide and endless, sharp against the dark sky. From this height, the broken ship looked small, its sparks dim against the silence of the moon. Ryan pulled out a portable shelter from his pack. It was not large, just enough to shield them from the cold air and keep out the faint radiation drifting across the surface. He set it up quickly, the thin walls glowing faint blue as the shield activated. Arya watched every move, her eyes alert despite her exhaustion. When the shelter was ready, Ryan helped her inside. She sat heavily against the wall, the armor clinking against the ground. He placed a small heater in the center, its warmth filling the space. You are safe here, Ryan said. Arya gave no reply. She reached down, her fingers tracing the cracks in her armor. Ryan noticed how tightly she pressed her jaw, as if she was holding back words. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. You treat me like I am weak. Ryan shook his head. I treat you like someone who needs help. That is different. Her eyes lifted to his, and for the first time he thought he saw a flicker of curiosity. Not trust, not yet, but something less harsh than before. She looked away again, staring at the heater's glow. Ryan unpacked more of his supplies. He pulled out medical tools and a roll of bandage. I need to look at your wounds, he said. Her body stiffened. No, you will not heal in that armor, Ryan insisted. It traps the heat, the blood, the pain. Let me help. She hesitated, her hand resting on the side where the armor had cracked earlier. She remembered how carefully he had cut through the fused plates, how gentle he had been when no one else had ever shown such care. After a long silence, she nodded once. Ryan leaned closer, using his tool to unseal another section of the armor. The hiss of metal breaking filled the air, but this time she did not flinch. He peeled the plate back slowly, revealing a deep burn beneath. Arya's face remained calm, but sweat gathered on her skin. He cleaned the wound with steady hands, wrapping it in clean bandage. Each time his fingers brushed her skin, she studied him with silent intensity, as though trying to understand what kind of man he was. When he finished, he sat back and let out a slow breath. There, he said. You will heal better now. Arya touched the bandage as if unsure what to make of it. Why do you care for me? She asked again, her voice softer this time. Ryan looked at her directly. Because no one deserves to suffer alone. Not human. Not alien. Anyone. Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. Instead she lowered her gaze, silent once more. The heater crackled gently, filling the shelter with calm. Outside, the moon remained still, but in the distance Ryan saw faint flashes of light. They were small, but unmistakable. Ships moving in orbit. He frowned, leaning forward to peer through the shield. Arya noticed his change of focus and followed his gaze. Her eyes widened slightly. She knew those lights. They are searching, she whispered. Searching for you? Ryan asked. She nodded. Her voice carried both pride and fear. My people. They will come. Ryan thought quickly. If her people were warriors like her, they might not care that she was injured. They might not even welcome him for saving her. He felt a knot of unease in his chest. Arya's hand pressed against the ground, her strength returning in small pieces. You should leave. If they find you with me, they will not spare you. Ryan shook his head. I will not leave you here. If they come, I will stand with you. Her eyes locked on his, sharp and searching. For a long moment she studied him as though trying to read his soul. Then, for the first time since they met, her expression softened. You are strange, human, she said. Strange, but not weak. Ryan gave a small smile. Then we understand each other. The shelter grew quiet again, but the silence was no longer heavy. Something unspoken passed between them, not yet trust but the beginning of it. Arya shifted slightly, letting her body rest more comfortably against the wall. She closed her eyes, her breathing steady. Ryan stayed awake, watching the faint lights in the sky grow brighter. He knew danger was coming. But he also knew he had made a choice. He would not abandon her, no matter who came searching. The glow from the heater lit the small shelter with a soft orange light. Outside, the barren moon lay silent, but the faint flashes of ships above reminded Ryan that their time was short. He sat near Arya, sharpening a small tool, his thoughts heavy with the task ahead. Arya rested against the wall, her chest rising with slow, steady breaths. Though she had allowed Ryan to unseal parts of her armor, most of it still clung to her body like a cage. Every time she shifted, a low sound of discomfort escaped her lips. Her pride kept her from asking for help, but Ryan saw the pain she tried to hide. "We must take off more of the armor," Ryan said at last, breaking the silence. "If it stays, it will make your wounds worse. Infection will spread. You cannot heal like this." Arya opened her eyes, the faint glow within them catching the heater's light. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, slowly, she gave a short nod. "Do it," she said, though her tone carried both command and hesitation. Ryan gathered his tools and moved closer. The armor was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was made of layers that seemed both mechanical and organic, as if it had grown into her body over years of use. The edges were fused, melted together from the crash. Removing it required patience. He pressed the cutter against one of the chest plates. Sparks jumped as the tool sliced through the hardened layer. The hiss of burning metal filled the air. Arya stayed still, her face calm but her body tense. Ryan could see sweat on her skin. "Tell me if I hurt you," he said softly. She gave a small laugh, though it carried no humor. "Pain is nothing new." Ryan frowned but did not answer. He continued carefully, peeling the plate back. Beneath it, he saw deep marks where the armor had pressed into her skin, leaving scars and fresh bruises. She had been wearing it for so long that it seemed part of her. As he worked, he spoke to keep her calm. "How long have you been in this armor?" Her eyes shifted toward the roof of the shelter, as if remembering distant battles. "Since my first war. I was young. My people give us armor the day we become soldiers. From that moment, we never remove it except for repairs." "Never?" Ryan asked in disbelief. She shook her head. "To take it off is shame. It means weakness. Only the dead are freed from their armor." Ryan paused, his hand resting on the cutter. He looked at her with quiet surprise. "So nobody ever helped you like this before?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. After a long silence, she whispered, "Nobody." The weight of her words settled between them. Ryan felt a sharp ache in his chest. He thought of his own people, how even in the harshest times they relied on one another. To imagine a life where comfort was forbidden, where pride demanded silence even in pain, filled him with sorrow. He resumed his work, more determined than before. Each piece of armor he removed revealed more of Arya's body beneath, scars running across her arms, burns along her shoulders, wounds from countless battles. Her skin told a story of survival, of someone who had endured what few could. Arya watched him closely. At first her eyes carried suspicion, but slowly her expression shifted. She saw the patience in his movements, the way his hands avoided pressing too hard against her wounds. Nobody had ever treated her injuries with such care. When another section came free, she let out a low breath, almost like relief. "You are different," she said quietly. Ryan gave a small smile without looking up. "Different is not always bad." She tilted her head, studying him. "My people see humans as soft. Too soft for war. Too soft for survival. But you are not soft. You are steady." Ryan chuckled softly. "Maybe we survive because we are steady. Not because we are strong, but because we hold on." Her glowing eyes lingered on him as if she was trying to understand his words. For Arya, strength had always meant battle, scars, and endurance. The idea that gentleness could also be strength was new to her. Hours passed as Ryan continued. At times Arya's breath grew heavy, at times she clenched her fists against the pain, but she never told him to stop. Piece by piece, the armor broke away. Each fragment he set aside felt like a chain cut loose. Finally, when the last large section of the chest plate came free, Ryan leaned back, exhausted but satisfied. Arya sat with her body free from much of the weight that had bound her. She touched the bandages covering her burns, her face unreadable. She whispered something, more to herself than to him. "I feel light." "Strange." Ryan nodded. "It will take time, but you will heal." Before Arya could answer, a sharp sound cut through the shelter. Ryan's head snapped up. From outside came the faint hum of engines. He crawled to the entrance and peered through the shield. In the distance, across the barren ground, lights flickered. Shapes moved against the horizon, small but growing. Ships were landing. He turned back quickly. "We are not alone anymore. Others are coming." Arya's eyes narrowed. She tried to push herself upright, though her body trembled with weakness. "My people," she said. "They will not be kind." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, firm but steady. "Then we must be ready." "But you cannot fight them in your state." Her face twisted with frustration. For her, the thought of hiding was dishonor. Yet the truth of her body weighed against her pride. She looked at him, silent for a long moment. "You risk much for me," she said at last. "I know," Ryan answered. "But I will not leave you." Something in her eyes softened. The walls of distrust she had built so high began to crack, just like the armor that once caged her. She gave a small nod, more a promise than agreement. Together, they prepared for what was coming. The ships were drawing closer, their engines echoing across the moon's silence. Arya sat beside Ryan, her body still weak, yet her spirit unbroken. Ryan tightened his grip on his tool, ready to defend her. In that moment, Arya realized something she had never known before. Strength was not only in armor or scars. Strength could also be found in the gentle hands of someone who refused to abandon her. The hum of engines echoed across the barren moon. The glow of landing thrusters painted the horizon with streaks of red and white. Ryan and Arya sat inside the small shelter, both silent as the sound drew nearer. Ryan tightened the straps of his pack, his heart beating faster. He had faced danger before in his travels, but this was different. These were not raiders or pirates. These were Arya's people, warriors who lived by strength and pride. He did not know how they would react when they found her with him. Arya's eyes glowed faintly in the dim shelter. She sat upright, though her body trembled from her wounds. The armor that once caged her now lay in broken pieces beside them. For the first time in her life, she faced her people without it. "They will not accept this," she said quietly. Ryan looked at her. "They will not accept that I helped you." She shook her head. "They will not accept that I allowed it. To them, it is weakness. To let another remove my armor, they will see it as shame." Ryan clenched his fists. "Then we must find a way. You are alive because you let me help. That is not weakness. That is strength." Her eyes searched his face, as if weighing his words against everything she had been taught. She gave no reply, but something in her gaze softened. The engines grew louder. Dust rose in the distance as ships touched down on the moon's surface. Through the shield of the shelter, Ryan could see dark shapes moving, soldiers spreading out with precision. Their armor was heavier than Arya's broken plates, their weapons glowing with energy. "They are close," Ryan said. "We cannot stay here." Arya nodded, though her body resisted movement. She tried to stand, her legs shaking beneath her. Ryan moved quickly to her side, steadying her with his arm. She wanted to pull away, pride urging her to refuse his support, but she lacked the strength. After a moment, she accepted his help. They left the shelter, climbing over a ridge of stone. From the top, Ryan looked back. The soldiers had reached the wreck of Arya's ship. Their voices carried faintly through the thin air, harsh and commanding. They moved like hunters, scanning the area with glowing devices. Ryan and Arya crouched low, moving along the ridge. Every step was slow, careful. Ryan kept his eyes on the soldiers, while Arya leaned against him, her breath heavy. "We cannot outrun them," Ryan whispered. "No," Arya said. "But we can hide." Together they moved into a shallow cave at the side of the ridge. Inside, the air was cool and still. Shadows stretched deep into the stone. Ryan guided Arya to a place where she could rest, then crouched near the entrance to watch. The soldiers spread out across the ground below. One of them raised a scanner, its beam sweeping over the rocks. The light passed close to their hiding place. Ryan held his breath, his hand near his small cutter tool, though it was no match for their weapons. Arya's voice came softly behind him. "You should leave me." Ryan turned to her quickly. "No, I will not. If they find you with me, they will kill you," she said. "You have no reason to risk your life." Ryan shook his head firmly. "I have every reason. I will not abandon you. Not now." Arya's eyes held his, and in them he saw both surprise and something new, something close to respect. She leaned back against the stone, silent. Minutes passed like hours. The soldiers moved closer, their boots striking the ground in heavy rhythm. Ryan's chest tightened with each step they took. The beam of the scanner swept again, brighter this time, but still passed by. At last, the soldiers seemed to lose interest. Their voices carried across the rocks, sharp and annoyed. Slowly, they began to move back toward their ships. Ryan exhaled in relief, though he did not lower his guard. Arya looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You risked yourself for nothing," she said softly. "Not for nothing," Ryan replied. "For you." Her lips parted as if to argue, but no words came. Instead she lowered her gaze, her hand brushing against the bandages on her side. She remembered his patience, his steady hands as he cut away the armor. Nobody had ever cared for her that way. When the sound of the soldiers faded into the distance, Ryan finally sat beside her. His body was tense, his mind racing with what might come next. "They will return," he said. "We need a plan." Arya nodded slowly. "You should not fight them. You cannot win." Ryan smiled faintly. "I am not planning to fight them. I am planning to outsmart them." She looked at him with a mixture of doubt and curiosity. Her people valued direct combat, not clever tricks. To suggest outwitting warriors seemed almost foolish. Yet she remembered how he had carried her, how he had hidden her from the soldiers. He had already done what she thought impossible. "How?" she asked. Ryan thought for a moment. "We use the wreck. They will think you are dead inside it. If they believe that, they will stop searching." Arya tilted her head. "Deception. That is not our way." "It is survival," Ryan said simply. Her gaze lingered on him, and slowly she nodded. "Very well. Show me." They waited until darkness fell across the barren moon. Together they crept back toward the wreck, moving carefully to avoid the patrols. Ryan guided Arya, supporting her with every step. She leaned on him, no longer fighting his help. When they reached the ship, Ryan worked quickly. He dragged broken pieces of armor inside, arranging them in a way that suggested a body had burned with the wreck. Arya watched silently, her pride wrestling with the idea of tricking her own people. Yet when she saw his determination, she said nothing. At last, the trap was set. Ryan helped Arya back to the ridge, where they could watch from above. Soon the soldiers returned, their scanners sweeping over the wreck. When they saw the fragments arranged within, their voices rose with satisfaction. To them, the evidence was clear: Arya had died in the crash. The soldiers marked the site, then began to withdraw. Their ships lifted into the sky, leaving the barren moon behind. Arya and Ryan sat together on the ridge, watching the lights fade. For the first time since the crash, true silence returned. "You saved me," Arya said at last. Her voice was quiet, almost uncertain. Ryan turned to her. "We saved each other." She studied him for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. Trust had not fully bloomed between them, but the first seed had taken root. The silence after the soldiers left was heavy, but it carried a strange peace. Ryan and Arya sat together on the ridge, their bodies weary but their spirits alert. The broken ship lay below them, now marked as a grave by those who had once been Arya's allies. To the world beyond, she was gone. To herself, she was something new, free, yet uncertain. Ryan kept his eyes on the stars, their light stretching forever across the sky. He knew that sooner or later more ships might come, but for now, they were safe. He glanced at Arya, who sat in quiet thought, her arms resting on her knees. The bandages wrapped around her side glowed faintly in the moonlight. "You are free from the search," Ryan said. "At least for now." Arya gave a small nod, though her eyes stayed distant. "Free," she repeated softly, as if testing the word. She had been a soldier all her life, bound to duty and armor. Now she sat with broken plates scattered on the ground, her body wounded but alive. For the first time, she wondered what freedom truly meant. Ryan shifted closer. "Do you want to tell me about them? Your people?" Her glowing eyes turned toward him. For a moment he thought she would refuse. She was a warrior, trained never to share weakness. Yet something in his steady gaze, something in his patience, broke the silence. "We are called the Varen," she said. "We are raised for battle from the moment we can walk. Strength is everything. Armor is everything. To show pain is dishonor. To ask for help is worse." Ryan listened closely, not interrupting. Arya touched one of the scars on her arm. "When I was young, I fought my first trial. They locked me in my armor and sent me into combat. If I survived, I was worthy. If I failed, I was forgotten. That is the way of my people." Her voice was calm, but Ryan could hear the weight behind every word. He imagined a child sent into battle, armor heavy, enemies surrounding her. His chest tightened. "And you survived," he said quietly. "I survived many trials," Arya answered. "I won battles. I led others. I was feared, respected, even honored. But never cared for. Never touched with gentleness. Always armor, always war." Ryan's hand tightened into a fist. He thought of the world he came from, where even in hardship, families shared warmth, friends stood together, and no one was expected to bear the weight of life alone. To him, strength was found in unity, not isolation. He spoke with calm conviction. "On Earth, we are not like that. We do not wear armor every day. We fight when we must, but we live for each other. Families raise children with love. Friends carry each other's burdens. We believe mercy is not weakness. It is strength." Arya turned to him, her brow furrowing. "Mercy is strength. That is not our way." "Maybe not," Ryan said. "But think of this. If no one had mercy, if no one ever showed care, would you be here now? Would I?" Her gaze lingered on him. She remembered the moment he cut through her armor, how careful he had been, how patient. Nobody had ever treated her like that. In her world, wounds were left to scar, pain was endured in silence. Yet here, she felt something different. "Your people would call you soft," she said. "My people would call me human," Ryan replied with a small smile. For a long time, neither spoke. The stars moved slowly across the dark sky. The faint hum of the heater in the shelter below carried on the air. At last, Arya broke the silence. "You said your people live for each other. Tell me more." Ryan leaned back, resting his arms on the ground. "On Earth, We have villages and cities. People work together to grow food, to build homes, to protect one another. If one falls, others help them stand again. If one is hurt, others care for them until they heal. We do not see shame in asking for help. We see strength in standing together. Arya listened with deep focus, her eyes fixed on him. Every word seemed to challenge everything she had known. She had fought beside soldiers, but never truly with them. Trust was rare. Care was unheard of. Would your people accept me? She asked suddenly. Ryan turned to her. If they saw you as I see you, yes. Her gaze dropped. I do not know how to live without battle. I do not know how to live without armor. You learn, Ryan said. Step by step. Nobody is born knowing how to live. We learn from each other. His words struck something deep within her. For years, she had believed strength meant silence, endurance, scars. Yet here was a man showing her that strength could also mean trust, patience, and care. It was a truth her people never taught her, but it felt real. Before she could answer, a sharp sound broke the moment. A faint alarm beeped from her armor fragments still lying inside the wreck. Ryan stood quickly, scanning the ground below. The broken ship was flashing with light. What is it? He asked. Arya's face hardened. The distress beacon. It has reactivated. Ryan's stomach tightened. That means more ships will come. Yes, Arya said. And they will not stop until they are certain. This time, they will search deeper. They will find us. Ryan looked at her with steady eyes. Then we must be ready. Arya stared back, her chest rising slowly. She felt the weight of her old life pressing against her, calling her back to the path of endless war. But she also felt something new, something fragile, yet powerful. The memory of Ryan's gentle hands breaking her armor piece by piece. The warmth of his voice when he told her mercy was strength. She clenched her fist, not in anger, but in resolve. If they come, I will not return to chains. I will not wear that armor again. Ryan nodded firmly. Then we stand together. The two of them sat in silence, side by side, watching the stars as the beacon's light pulsed below. For Arya, it was the first time she had spoken of her people's ways with honesty. For Ryan, it was the first time he saw how deeply she longed for more than endless war. The night felt endless, but neither Ryan nor Arya slept. They knew the beacon's light meant danger was near. Every flash in the wreck below reminded them that time was running short. By dawn, Ryan had gathered what little supplies he had left: tools, food, and a small energy lamp. Arya sat by the broken plates of her armor, staring at them in silence. Her glowing eyes seemed colder than the morning air. They will come, she said at last. Not scouts this time. A full squad. Ryan adjusted the strap on his pack. Then we prepare. We don't run. Arya's lips tightened. She was torn between two worlds. Her people had raised her to face battles with honor. Yet now, she wanted something more than honor, she wanted freedom. She looked at Ryan. Do you not fear them? He shook his head. Of course I do. But fear is not reason enough to give up. Her chest rose with a slow breath. It amazed her how this simple man spoke with the certainty of a commander, though he had no army and no weapons of great power. His strength was not in steel or fire, but in his spirit. By midday, the sound came deep and steady, like thunder rolling across the sky. A shadow grew over the ridge. Another Varan ship cut through the clouds, larger than the last. Its silver frame glimmered in the sunlight as it descended toward the wreck. Arya stood, her body tense. Memories of orders shouted in the war halls filled her mind. She remembered standing at attention, armor sealed, her name called for battle. But this time she was not among them. She was the hunted. The ship landed with force, stirring dust into the air. The ramp dropped, and out marched soldiers in full black armor, heavier than those before. Their movements were sharp, their discipline perfect. At their head walked a figure Arya knew well. It was Commander Vyar. His armor was etched with symbols of victory, his presence heavy with authority. Arya's chest tightened at the sight of him. Once, she had followed him without question. Now, she felt the weight of defiance pressing against her. Vyar's voice boomed through a translator. Arya. You live. You dishonor us with this deceit. You were ordered to return. You were ordered to obey. Arya stood tall, though she wore no armor. I will not return, Commander. I will not obey. The soldiers shifted, their weapons ready, but Vyar raised a hand to stop them. His glowing eyes behind the visor narrowed as he stepped forward. You are Varen. You are forged for war. You cannot deny what you are. Ryan stepped beside her. She is more than your war. She is free to choose. Vyar turned his gaze on him, almost amused. And you are the human. The one who thinks kindness can shatter armor. You are nothing in the face of Varen's strength. Ryan did not flinch. Maybe. But I know strength that you will never understand. She has seen it too. Arya felt her heart pound. Every word shook something inside her. Once, she would have bowed her head to Vyar. Once, she would have hidden behind her armor. But not now. I am not nothing without armor, she said, her voice steady. You told us mercy was weakness. You told us pain must be hidden. But I have seen another way. I have felt strength in care, in trust, in freedom. That is the strength I choose. Her words echoed across the ridge. The soldiers behind Vyar shifted uneasily. None of them had ever heard such defiance. Vyar's eyes burned. You are broken. No, Arya replied firmly. I am free. The silence that followed was heavy. For a moment, even the wind seemed to stop. Vyar's hand lifted, signaling the soldiers. Then you are no longer Varen. You are enemy. Weapons hummed as the soldiers stepped forward. Ryan's grip tightened around a simple metal rod he had taken from the wreck. It was no match for their advanced weapons, but he stood ready. Arya stepped in front of him. Her stance was unyielding, her glowing eyes locked on Vyar. If you want me, you will have to fight me without armor, as I stand now. The commander hesitated. Among the Varen, challenges could not be ignored. To refuse was dishonor. Arya knew this. She had turned his own laws against him. Vyar's voice was sharp. You dare challenge me? I do, Arya said. The soldiers looked to their commander. Ryan watched with a pounding heart. He realized what Arya was doing. She was taking a stand not only for herself, but for everything she had come to believe. Vyar stepped forward, removing his helmet with slow precision. His face was stern, scarred, every line carved by battle. He cast the helmet aside, then unlatched his chest plate. Piece by piece, the commander shed his armor until he stood in simple undersuit. His muscles were like iron, his presence fierce. You will regret this, Vyar growled. Arya raised her chin. Perhaps. But regret is better than chains. The soldiers formed a circle. The challenge was set. Ryan stood just outside, his chest tight with worry. Arya had been wounded, her body still healing, yet she stood tall. He wanted to rush in, but he knew this was her fight. To interfere would dishonor her stand. The duel began. Vyar lunged with powerful strikes, each blow heavy enough to break stone. Arya moved with speed, dodging, parrying, using his force against him. The ground shook with each clash, dust rising into the air. Ryan watched, heart racing, as Arya fought with a grace he had never seen. She was not fighting as the Varen taught her, not with blind force. She was fighting with balance, with patience, with purpose. The soldiers around them watched in silence, their loyalty bound by the rules of their people. None moved to stop the duel. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Both warriors bore wounds, but Arya's spirit burned brighter with each moment. At last, with one final strike, she brought Vyar to the ground. Her hand hovered near his throat, but she did not finish him. Instead, she stepped back. "I will not kill you. Mercy is my choice." The soldiers gasped softly. Never had they seen a warrior win and refuse the final blow. Vyar lay stunned, more shaken by her choice than by her strike. Arya turned, standing tall before them all. "I am no longer bound by your laws. I am more than armor, more than war. I choose my own path." For a long moment, silence held the circle. The soldiers did not move. Some looked at her with doubt, others with quiet wonder. Ryan stepped forward, pride shining in his eyes. He knew she had not only fought for freedom, she had shown them a strength beyond anything they had known. The wind carried her words across the ridge. They could not be erased. The Varen had seen that their strongest commander was defeated not by greater force, but by a warrior who had embraced mercy. The ridge was quiet after the duel. Vyar lay on the ground, breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling under the thin undersuit. The soldiers who had come to enforce his command now stood uncertain, their weapons lowered. For the first time, they faced the idea that strength could exist beyond the weight of armor and the rules of command. Arya's chest rose with calm determination. She looked over the broken ship, the fragments of her armor scattered across the moon dust. She was free from it now, free from the chains of expectation. Yet freedom brought new questions, questions that her people had never allowed her to ask. Ryan stepped beside her, steady and alert. He had not moved during the duel, knowing that this was Arya's battle. But he had watched with pride and awe as she stood against the greatest authority in her world and refused to yield. "They will follow us," Arya said quietly, her eyes scanning the horizon. "Some will not accept what I have done. Some will try to take me back." Ryan nodded. "Then we must leave this place. Together. You have proven to them who you are, but their minds are slow to change." Arya turned to him, the faint glow of her eyes reflecting both gratitude and uncertainty. "I do not know where to go. I do not know what path to follow." Ryan smiled gently. "You do not need to know all the answers. Step by step, we will find it. You have courage, and you have choice. That is more than anyone can ask." The soldiers behind them stirred, some lowering their weapons completely, others stepping back with caution. Vyar had called them, and they had obeyed. Now, they saw something different. They saw a warrior who fought not for honor or obedience, but for freedom. Vyar finally spoke, his voice quieter, less commanding. "Arya, you have changed the rules. Not only for yourself, but for all who follow." Arya met his gaze. "I have changed nothing for you. You must choose your own way, as I choose mine." The commander studied her, then nodded slowly. He gathered the soldiers. "Return to the ships. Leave this world for now." Arya and Ryan watched them move away. There was no celebration, no cheer. Only the quiet understanding that something new had begun. Ryan turned to Arya. "It is time to go." She nodded. Her legs still trembled slightly, but her body was stronger than she realized. The absence of armor felt strange, yet light. She took a deep breath, feeling the wind on her skin for the first time in years without the weight of battle pressing down. Together, they moved toward Ryan's small craft, careful to stay low and avoid detection. Arya marveled at the simplicity of it. Unlike her people's ships, built for war and intimidation, this one was designed for travel, for exploration, and for safety. Inside, Ryan started the engines. The gentle hum filled the cabin, warm and comforting. Arya sat beside him, still silent, letting the sound soothe the tension from her body. "You saved me again," she said softly, after a long pause. "No," Ryan replied. "We saved each other. That is the truth." Arya studied him. The human beside her had shown patience, courage, and care. In a world built on steel and command, he had taught her that strength could be gentle, and freedom could be chosen. The craft lifted from the moon, leaving behind the wreck and the soldiers. The barren landscape shrank below them as they rose toward the stars. Arya felt her chest expand with the sensation of open space, a freedom she had never known. Ryan glanced at her. "Where do we go next?" Arya thought for a moment. For years, she had been bound by rules, orders, and the weight of expectation. Now, she was free to choose her own path. "Somewhere far," she said. "Somewhere we can learn. Somewhere I can discover what it means to live." Ryan nodded. "Then we go." As the stars spread before them, Arya leaned back in her seat. She remembered the first moments with Ryan, when he had cut her armor, when he had treated her with care, when he had offered trust without demand. All of those moments had led to this flight, this escape, this chance at a life unbound. She realized something. Strength was not in surviving battles alone. Strength was not in the weight of armor or the sharpness of weapons. Strength was in choice. Strength was in mercy, in trust, in the courage to step into the unknown and make a new way forward. Ryan watched her from the pilot's seat, knowing she was thinking deeply. "You are ready for this," he said. "I think I am," she replied. "For the first time, I feel ready to be who I want to be, not just what I was told to be." The stars passed by like rivers of light. Arya closed her eyes briefly, feeling the hum of the craft beneath her. She imagined a future where she could teach others the lessons she had learned: the value of trust, the power of care, the freedom to choose. "Will your people follow?" she asked softly. Ryan shook his head. "Some might. Some might not. That is for them to decide. You cannot force change on anyone. You only live your truth." Arya nodded. "Then I will live it. And I will protect it." The craft jumped into faster travel, leaving the moon behind. Arya opened her eyes and looked at the stars stretching endlessly ahead. For the first time, she felt hope without fear. Ryan glanced at her and smiled. "Ready for your first true adventure?" Arya returned the smile, faint but strong. "Yes. And I will not need armor to face it." Together, they sailed into the unknown, a human and a Varan warrior bound by trust, choice, and the courage to define their own destiny.